Hey, it's day 27 of my journey towards writing my first fantasy novel, and as promised, I'm going to share with you today some of the comments that I've been receiving on my recent videos, because there's pure gold in there, and maybe not everyone has time to read through those comments. So yesterday I introduced a couple of new characters. An important one is the abbess, who is the superior of Elara, and reminds Elara of her family situation, because this is an older lady, very strict, very stern. And so initially Elara hates her, but maybe in the end we will discover that there's another side to this strict lady. So I got some feedback on that. Elara, being defiant, could spin all sorts of conspiracies about her superior. Maybe it's Elara that thinks that her superior may be in cahoots with this evil abbot. But that could all be a red herring for the readers. And so in the end, I could humanize this character, and showing that she actually has is a very moral character, a very important character, and that the fact that she was strict was for a reason. I kind of like that idea. And the feedback continues. Accurate and sympathetic representation of consecrated men and women is so needed in today's market, and I totally agree. Whenever I see a priest on TV in a series, I cringe, because usually they're going to portray the same kind of stereotype. Like the other day I was watching The Sopranos, and you have this young priest, and now, obviously he's going to fall in love with the wife of the mafia boss, and it's also tropey, worse than tropey, it's just a cliche. So yeah, this could be my chance to show some different sides of these, you could say, archetypes, these monastic archetypes. Then some feedback on Tim's mentor. And initially I was thinking literally of an Obi-Wan Kenobi, Alec McGuinness type of guy. But the more that I think of it, the more it could be someone in a very different way. So he's definitely kind of soft-spoken, and I like the idea that he looks a bit like a chef, like, who loves his own food, right? And so he may look like this gentle giant, but when the fights really start, he turns into a formidable power. So the feedback says, Tim's mentor reminds me of Iroh, Uncle Iroh of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I'm thinking, yes, now that you mention it, this is very much an Uncle Iroh type of guy. Very gentle, but as the feedback says, also a powerful former warlord, and can still unleash some powerful attacks when needed. But I'm worried that if I make the mentor too sympathetic and too popular, people will resent me for killing him off, right? Maybe I shouldn't kill him off. Maybe he's just knocked unconscious and returns later. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Then about the language, got so much great feedback about the use of language for the names in my book, but also the language question in general, because and this is probably where my total ignorance has shown the most. When I was in Ireland in October, I was talking to this field archaeologist, and I told him about my project to film a documentary series about Celtic saints. And he said, "Oh, don't call them Celtic saints, they're Gaelic saints, they're Gaelic saints." And it's related to the Gaelic language. And it goes all the way to, Scotland and then Ireland, and that's all kind of one same family. So Celtic, he was against that, and kind of that stuck with me. And so I was constantly talking about Gaelic being spoken in Ireland, which is of course wrong, as some of you have actually mentioned, because in Ireland they speak Irish, right? And in the 6th century, people spoke Old Irish. Now these are all kind of parts of this kind of umbrella family of Gaelic language, but apparently it's a bit offensive to call the language that they speak in Ireland Gaelic, because it's Irish. So my apologies. There were also some reactions to the kind of the names, and my problem that Tim and Elara both are not names from that era and from that period of time. So One solution that was suggested was, well, maybe their ancestry is from abroad. Maybe Elara sounds Greek, so maybe she is from a Greek family originally, and Tim could be from anywhere because Timothy is a biblical name. But I also got some really good suggestions for Gaelic alternatives. Here we go again, confusion, Gaelic, Irish. But you have names like Tadig. So that's T-A-D-G, Tadig, which translates to poet, storyteller, philosopher. That seems such a great match for the way I portray Tim. Literally the perfect name for your main protagonist. I agree. I need how to convey to the reader how to pronounce that, because if you just read what is written, you don't really fully get how you should pronounce it. And this is one of the issues that, for instance, Scottish readers have with the Fourth Wing, because a lot of the language that is used there is mispronounced, especially in the audiobook, which is super grating. So I don't know, I'll figure it out. And then there are some other suggestions also for Elara, and there is an old Irish name, Eala. And Eala means swan, and that connects the name to an ancient myth of the children of Lear. And I had to Google that, but it has to do with swans. So Eala means swan, and I actually really love that image of Eala as a swan, because she is a bit like a swan, right? She comes from a time where she was like an ugly duckling and not treated well by her parents and family. But here in this story, she becomes a swan. She literally gets wings, if I continue to go with that idea that she merges with an angel or gets angelic powers. So it could be literally like, visually, she could be like a swan. I love the suggestions. Thank you so much. And then I even got a suggestion for the puppy, or one of the pets, maybe Tim's pet, and that is Neve, which you spell N-I-A-M-H. So spelling is always hard for me as a non-native English speaker, because we have we call the letters differently. But anyway, so Neve. So it's a girl that is used in Ireland for, it's a name that is used in Ireland for girls. So I like it. Some other suggestions: Tara Grain, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Grainne. I really need an English, I need an Irish language coach. So if there's anyone there among you that can help me with those language issues, I'd love to have someone stand by to help me out. Then I got a lot of feedback on the writing process itself. Someone says, I love the what if part of outlining and the brainstorming process. Nothing is ever set in stone at the beginning. It's exciting. That's absolutely true. It is. It's like drinking coffee. Like every time I've got a new idea, I get all like super energized. I also noticed a downside, and that is that the story just keeps changing and more characters are added. And I'm a little bit worried that it gets too complicated or just too much for one book. And one of the things that I personally dislike in a number of fantasy novels, even very popular ones, is this overwhelm that I get. And this may also be because I'm neurodivergent, and with ADHD, I sometimes have trouble focusing on, if there's too much information, too many names, I get very, very distracted. So I don't want to make that same mistake in my books, and just keep the pace steady. So I can complicate, but I have to do it step by step. And so in this phase, it all becomes a bit too much, even for me, to keep track of everyone. So my next step is going to be to create that story Bible, and then just take everything I've come up with so far in these past 3 weeks, and then just make a very structured document with all the characters, their arcs, and also a very systematic outline of the story. And then I should probably start writing. So my aim is to start writing the first draft on February the 1st. So the first month is all brainstorm plus feedback, and the second month is going to be writing. And I have no idea how much time that is going to take, because as I said, this is my first novel. I've never written fiction in English, because you always have to keep in mind, English is not my native language. And so I'm a little bit, I don't try to think of it too much, but I wonder, is my English good enough? I mean, conversational English, sure, but is it good enough to write a novel? I don't know. It's scary, but hey, I like the challenge. So, some more feedback on the writing process. Imposter syndrome. That's something that I struggled with, especially before I started this project. And someone says, the thing we need to keep telling ourselves is that we are not imposters and that our stories need to be told along with everyone else. I don't know if my story needs to be told, but it's something I just like to tell, and it gives me joy. And there is no ulterior motive. It doesn't have to become like a bestseller. It would be nice, of course, but so I'm writing primarily because I love this story and I want to get it out there and share it. And then we'll see what happens. Someone else wrote, I am so glad that the YouTube algorithm brought me to your channel. I feel that we are on the same journey that I went to, and he walked with his wife 2 miles and brainstormed the whole time. And it felt so good. So it's awesome to see someone who is incentivized by my vlogs to start doing the same, start writing again. And I've had a number of you react in the same way, like, oh, I used to write, and then I just stopped for whatever reason. But now that I see you so enthusiastic about your writing process, I've picked up my writing again, and I couldn't be happier. If that was the only result of this whole project, I think I'm already super, super happy with that result. So good for you. And then let's see. There's someone else who also has been writing for 6 years, has written a draft for beta readers, and then her husband told her, write it your way. So these 6 years weren't wasted. She learned a lot, but letting go of other people's rules and expectations and taking that leap of faith was the best feeling in the world. I totally agree. One of the things that held me back for my entire life was this feeling that whatever I did, it was never good enough. And so I was very much a perfectionist. But this perfectionism has often stopped me from being creative by fear of being judged and everything. And the whole reason that I'm sharing this day-to-day with you is to get over that and to just share my story and also how I am and not just the successes, but also the struggles with you, to allow myself to just be myself and to I don't have to be perfect to share something that is exciting. So anyway, so this is something very important for me, and this process has already helped me a ton to become more confident in that, it's good enough. These videos are good enough. They don't have to be edited. They don't have to, I come from a world of TV production where for 1 minute, I would spend usually 1 hour of editing for 1 minute of TV. And I think that has worsened my tendency to be perfectionistic. And now I'm kind of going in reverse and trying to just share from the heart. Then lots of reactions to the plot and to the characters. Someone writes, thanks for making this story. I really liked it. And for me, it felt like it was almost a supernatural experience to watch your videos because I'm currently discerning to become a monk. What? And I had some Lego minifigures from my past that I was customizing and then they disappeared. All right. So yeah, that is like a mirror of the scene that I described in one of my previous videos. Wow, so cool. Someone else wrote about those same figurines. Tim making figures for kids makes a lot of sense. Even if he's not teaching them officially, he's showing his potential of being a story mage even before he becomes one officially. That is exactly kind of the reason that I wanted Tim to show us in the beginning of the story that he loves stories and that he actually infuses stories with magic, even kind of without realizing it. And then someone else wrote, yeah, the idea of establishing background for both characters before they go on the pilgrimage. So this goes back to one of my videos, I think like a week ago, where I decided to, initially the whole story would start with this pilgrimage with the codex to be read. By the way, this past Sunday, there was a reading in church from the book of Nehemiah. And I was reading it, it was like, that is exactly the liturgy around the codex. It's that they read from the book of laws and everybody is listening and the whole city is there and it's a huge party afterwards and it fills them with joy and courage. I'm thinking, wow, somehow that story probably is in my subconscious, and when I was writing my own story, it kind of started to show through. It's just crazy. Anyway. So, but now I decided to tell more first about the monastery and about the kind of ordinary life that Tim and Elara live before the call to adventure. The pet also as a defender, that is perfection. So a lot of people love that idea of having like pets in real life, and then if they are in the story spell, they can turn into these mythological monsters. More about that tomorrow, by the way, because got another great idea. And then I was feeling guilty about putting Tim through the ringer and having him go suffer so much. But then someone wrote, as bad as this sounds, putting characters through the ringer is part of what storytelling is all about. From what you've told about Tim, he is already very different from Luke Skywalker because he's a creative person. I like that he has a collection like Ariel from Little Mermaid. Him losing that collection of minifigures feels like Tim losing a bit of his childhood or his childlike manner. Love that. That is a nice character reason for that to happen. And then some reactions to the idea of integrating holy wells, which are super important in Ireland and have been important for kind of most of the Christian history of Ireland. And you can find holy wells, there are hundreds of them all over the country. And these used to be important places of pilgrimage, places where people would pray, and also places where miracles would take place. So, wonderful idea to elaborate in your story, the feedback reads. And then also that story in a story using different saints would be very powerful. So this was the idea that story spells are like portals, and they can transport you to other times, not just to other places. And these story spells don't only create fictional worlds, but they can basically create any world. And so they can bring you into the time frame of famous, I don't know, biblical figures or saints that have long passed, or even to the future. So it is that whole portal aspect of the magic, I think, can give me a lot of room for future stories, future books maybe even. Let's see, then some feedback about the attack coming early in the book. So this is the kind of the foiled attack on the codex during the pilgrimage. And then here's a suggestion, maybe when the attack happens, Tim spots Elara and drags her to safety, the equivalent of the meet cute in a romance story. That's the first time that I hear about that. But then again, romance is not really the genre that I read a lot. You can get some exposition on their curiosity about the scribes and reasons for coming to the monastery from their dialogue. And then I reacted, well, maybe it's not Tim who saves Elara. Maybe it's Elara who has to save Tim. I think that actually matches the character of Elara a lot better because she's very strong, and Tim kind of like really needs that just as much as Elara needs someone creative and someone easygoing like Tim in her life. And no, this is not a setup for a romance, although you never know. Then about the history, got a lot of great feedback about my ideas to integrate real history, 6th century medieval Irish history into the story. The Book of Kells, I mentioned that as a source of inspiration, even though the Book of Kells is from a later date, but there were similar books in the 6th century. It's a great source for animals, lots of mythological lions, the ones who vomit rainbows. Some more feedback on that for anyone wanting later medieval depictions of rural activities as well as mythology. Try the Luttrell, Psalter, and Bestiaries. You used to be able to view it online for free at the British Library, but since their cyber attack may be offline, there are definitely bestiaries still available, which might be worth checking. And if you scan the British Library digitized manuscripts, you should get the page. So very cool. Then in my live stream, and if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it, because this was a live stream that I did a couple of days ago. And I basically told the whole first part of the story, but I tried to narrate it and make it exciting. So it's a great way to kind of catch up if this is one of the first videos you see of this process. You may be a little bit lost about, so where, what, who is who and what is happening. So go watch that one. But then in the opening scene, I actually described Furtivus, who's kind of the bad guy in the story, and he steals a plate, and I said, with fish and potatoes. And then someone corrected me, wait a minute, no potatoes in Ireland until the 16th century. I was like, oh my gosh, when I think Ireland, I think fish and chips. You know, that's what I had in Galway almost every evening. And so it didn't occur to me that potatoes had not been brought to Ireland. So I need to come up with something else. But I love that. And I really appreciate that there are a couple of historians that are watching these videos and are willing to help me and prevent me from making egregious mistakes that will forever destroy my reputation. Some more feedback. Exciting to find historical footprints and weave them into your story. May I suggest another angle to the plot? Ethan is this angel. And again, tomorrow we need to talk about that angel, because that may change. But anyway, stay tuned. Ethan could be a young monk who not only survives the attack on where the codex is stolen, but also struggles with both memory loss and a deep inward struggle with his faith, not knowing that an angel has latched onto him and is now fighting for full control. Friendship versus betrayal, faith versus temptation, just a thought. Yes. I mean, probably like 2 weeks ago, I would have embraced this, but I'm starting to wonder more and more if this is how I want to tell the story. I'm not sure if I need the angel anymore. That's all I'm going to say about it. Stay tuned tomorrow. I'll explain why I think I may have to get rid of the angel. And then some more feedback on the relationship between Elara and Furtivus. So this bad guy who disguises himself as a young novice. Elara sounds like she's coming down with the case of, if evil, why hot? Like with Rey and Kylo Ren. And oh my goodness, yeah. Again, I'm not very experienced as a reader in the romantasy genre, but I'm currently reading The Fourth Wing. Yes, and I have reasons. And in fact, one of the things I'm planning to do as an aside to the regular novel writing stuff that I post here on this channel is a reading vlog. And because I read a lot, and so I was thinking, well, what if after 2 hours, I usually try to read about 2 hours per day, that every day I record a little summary of my impressions. And that could be a lot of fun, because I have a lot of things to say about The Fourth Wing, both good, but also critical. So anyway, and then in The Fourth Wing, this is like every single chapter. There's this bad guy, and then the protagonist is like, oh, he's so evil. Oh, I hate him so much. But oh my God, he's so hot. And then there's this whole description of the muscles and the hair. And I'm like, yeah, girl, you're about to get killed, and that's what comes up in your mind? Seriously? Now, I'm a celibate priest, so maybe I just don't get that, but it feels so contrived and so over the top. So I don't know if I want to put Elara in a situation like that, but I definitely think there is a very interesting part of the story is this relationship between Elara and Furtivus. I don't know, maybe it can have a little bit of a romantic side to it or tension. But what is more important for that relationship is that Elara is tempted by Furtivus. Furtivus is the one who tries to convince her to kind of choose the easy way and to use her anger and her, like, let's say her character flaws as a way to whatever deal with her enemies or perceived enemies. So anyway, there is a lot of potential there, I think, for an interesting twist in the story. That's the feedback that I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much. This was a bit longer than I expected, but keep commenting on my story beats, on my characters, because those, even if I don't immediately use your suggestion, it's all still marinating here in my mind. And who knows, maybe one day I'll wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and that one comment of you kind of is a breakthrough for the story. So thank you so much for being such a supportive community around this very, very, burgeoning early project. But, like I'm already so happy that I started to do this, and I'm super happy with the company. See you tomorrow.